Hello everyone, I welcome you all for the online teaching session of Chapter 5, Session 1. Now, before I start with this session, in the last session I said you about natural disasters that we are going to start with, and I'll be discussing about earthquakes and volcanoes. So I'm sure you're handy with some of the information related to it so that you can correlate and enjoy the session. So we'll be dealing some of the important information on earthquakes, epicenter, hypocenter, and volcanic eruptions. So let's get started for this session. Natural disasters. So, students, I think this topic is really very interesting, and I'm sure all of you are aware of these topics because somewhere we have been part of disasters. So, firstly, we'll understand what we basically understand by natural disasters. Now, natural disasters are major adverse events resulting from natural processes of the earth. Examples like floods, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, storms, etc. All these disasters are occurring naturally. That's why they are called as natural disasters. Earthquake. Now we all have experienced earthquake in some other way. So I think it's going to be very interesting for you to know how it all starts. Now, earthquake initially, it's important for us to know what actually happens during earthquake. An earthquake is the shaking of the surface of the earth. So, whenever there is an earthquake, what happens? There is sudden shaking of the surface of the earth, and this happens because of the collision of plates. So, because of the disturbance in the plates in the interior part of the earth, it leads to sudden shaking of the surface. Many a times, it is also because of the pressure, tremendous pressure which is accumulated in the interior part of the earth, and it needs to exhibit out. So the internal and external pressure, when there is imbalance, it leads to situation like earthquake. Now basically during earthquake, what actually happens, from where is the energy getting released out, from where actually the vibrations are getting released out. So it's very important for us to know. Waves of earthquake originate from its hypocenter, which is deep down the surface of the earth. So the waves of earthquake actually starts from hypocenter. Actually, it is also called as focus, which is located in the deep down surface of the earth. And from hypocenter, the entire vibration reaches to the epicenter, which spreads the vibration on the surface of the earth. So earthquake leads to a lot of destruction of life and property. So we all need to be very careful whenever there is an earthquake. Epicenter. The point on the surface of the earth exactly above the hypocenter or focus is known as epicenter. So the point on the surface of the earth, the location which is exactly above the hypocenter or focus is known as epicenter. So the vibrations of the earthquake actually starts from hypocenter and it reaches to epicenter, and from epicenter it gets spread to different locations. So the intensity of the earthquake decreases as we move away from the epicenter. So maximum damage happens if the area is located near the epicenter. So the maximum destruction happens in this kind of locations. But if the areas or places are away from epicenter, then comparatively the destruction will be less. So epicenter is the center from where the vibrations actually spread out. The intensity of the earthquake is seen completely in different locations, but it needs to be measured because what a level an earthquake has occurred, it's very important for us to measure. So for that we have an instrument called seismograph. Through seismograph, very easily we can measure the intensity of the earthquake. So seismograph works in such a beautiful way that it gives you accurate information of the intensity. So the needle starts moving as the paper is placed below the needle, and as it moves as per the vibration of the earthquake, it gives the exact magnitude of the intensity of the earthquake. So epicenter gives the level of intensity because the vibrations are spread from hypocenter, and that is the maximum damage that is seen areas which is closer to epicenter. Now, the next disaster is volcano. Volcano refers to an opening in the Earth's crust from which molten lava, rock fragments, ashes, dust, and gases are ejected from below the Earth's surface. So, volcano is basically opening of the Earth's crust. So, in one particular location, you can see a sudden bursting of the Earth's crust. Usually, it's in a circular motion. So, when there is a volcanic eruption, what basically happens is the uh, inner things which is seen in the interior part of the earth are thrown outside, like for example molten lava, then rock fragments, ashes, dust, and gases. All these are seen coming out from the volcano. So when there is opening in the earth's crust and when we see this kind of uh, fragments, ashes, dust, gases coming out from the below the earth's surface is known as volcano. Volcanic eruption. Now in volcanoes we saw what is volcano, but now we'll understand what are volcanic eruptions, what exactly is part of volcanic eruptions, and we'll also see uh, that why basically there is a volcanic eruption, what happens in the interior part of the earth. Volcanoes erupt when molten rocks called magma rises to the surface. So when the hot liquid, that is magma, rises towards the surface, then there is a pressure which is created. Magma is actually formed when the earth's mantle melts. So when that portion starts melting, the rocks, when they start melting, they become liquid and they get raised upwards, and because of the extreme pressure they need to come outside, and when they don't find any space they break open the earth's crust, and that's how the volcanic eruption occurs. Another way an eruption happens is when water underneath the surface interacts with hot magma and creates steam. This can build up enough pressure to cause an explosion. So basically volcanic eruption is a good example of a pressure. So there is water underneath the surface, and when it interacts with hot magma it creates steam, due to which the pressure is built up, and because of this pressure it leads to explosion. So volcanic eruption basically is because of the extreme pressure inside the interior part of the earth which leads to explosion. Now coming towards the end of the session, I'm sure you have taken important notes so that you can revise later. Now the task for home is to write down neatly in a book the details related to the earthquake and volcanoes. So today we did these two main topics, so you can write down very neatly and explain about these two main topics, earthquake and volcano. So students, I'm sure you enjoyed this session. Now for our next session, I'll be discussing about the other disasters like tsunami, floods, famine, disaster management, etc. So it's going to be very interesting topics. So please do collect some information on this and be ready for our next session.